if you're watching this video right now, that means that the title worked. However, what it also means is it means that there is a large discrepancy between the content that gets requested versus the content that actually gets watched. And before we go any further with this, I am going to stop being cryptic. I'm going to stop, I'm sure there's a lot of y'all out there that are saying like, oh my God, get to the point already. And the point of this is I get requested to play, or rather to revisit, these older Need for Speed games, like for example, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit that you're watching on screen right now. However, one of the other issues that I run into with stuff like this is that I get requested to do this all the time. On my SnowRunner videos, I get requested to do this on my whatever videos, to be honest. People are always, even on my shorts, I get requests from people saying things like, oh, why don't you do like a full revisit of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit or Need for Speed Most Wanted and games like that. And I would love to. However, these, for whatever reason, and I'm not quite sure if it's an algorithm issue or if it's something else, but I have tried to revisit these games before on my channel and the videos themselves just don't seem to go anywhere. And honestly, I'm sure that that has to do with multiple different things. One, I'm sure that over time, obviously people's interest in games changes. However, the interesting thing about that is I remember playing games like this on the channel and there was a large community around them, and that doesn't necessarily seem to be quite as much of the case anymore. Now, it's also, I'm sure, a case of the fact that maybe the algorithm has gotten used to my channel's audience only being interested in off-road stuff, which if you're into the off-road stuff that I do, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate everyone that watches the off-road games, like for example SnowRunner and a lot of the others. However, there are more games out there, and there are other games that I would like to either play or revisit or explore on the channel. But the problem that I continue to run into with that stuff is the fact that the content just literally seems to not go anywhere. And I'm sure that there's going to be a ton of people in the comments that are going to say things like, well, that's just because your channel is dead. You should have stopped posting a long time ago. And you know what's really funny about that? There have been many times over the years where people have said my channel was dead, and it just kept going. Like, I think the first time people actually started saying my channel was quote unquote dead was like 5 or 6 years ago. Now, maybe that's because I'm just a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a little bit of an old lady in this whole YouTube game now, because I don't know, I feel like I tend to do things like thumbnails and titles in a style that was popular like, I don't know, 8 years ago. And I've never necessarily been one for, I don't know, just like massive over-the-top titles and massive over-the-top thumbnails every single video. Now, have I done some over-the-top titles and thumbnails? Sure. But at the same time, can that be every single video you do? I don't really think so, because I feel like that just leads into total subscriber burnout and also total creator burnout, because I've also dealt with that before. And also when it comes to the fact that I've been on this platform for so long now, so many years, I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize how much an audience can change over that time period. And I think to a degree, an audience can adjust, it can flow, it can move. And not only that, but when you've been on a platform for as long as I have, I'm sure that some of the audience from years ago is also just honestly aged out. But to bring this all back around, from a creator's standpoint, from a creative standpoint, and from like a gaming content creator standpoint, I mean, it's honestly wild to think about how many different types of content and different types of mediums of content I have dived into over the years. And I mean, we're talking about having streamed on different platforms over the years. We're talking about making video content on different platforms over the years. YouTube obviously being the primary platform, but all of those different experiments into other platforms honestly taught me a lot and always kind of kept me on my toes with the content that I made. And honestly, I think what it also showed me was that sometimes, even if you have put a lot of effort into a piece of content or you're really passionate about it, you may upload it and it may just honestly not do well at all and never go anywhere in the algorithm, never go anywhere in the subscription feed, never go anywhere in terms of engagement. But then you put it on another platform and it gets 1.3 million views. And I tested this a couple of times over the course of the past year or so over on my Facebook page, where I made it wasn't even SnowRunner content. This is the wild thing about it. It wasn't even SnowRunner content. It was MudRunner content. And I put the same video on YouTube and on Facebook at the same time on the same day. And the one on YouTube, identical video, by the way, the one on YouTube got like 4,000 views. The one on Facebook got about 1.1, 1.2 million views. And when I had that happen on about 2 or 3 different occasions, it kind of made me take a step back for a second. And I was like, so there really is something odd about where I sit on the YouTube platform. There really is. Because to be entirely honest, I've always played games on this YouTube channel that I have personally enjoyed, because gaming has always been a passion of mine that has been shared between the passion for cars and vehicles in general and trucks and off-road and all of these different things just kind of baked into one. However, the biggest issue is that I think the more time I spend on YouTube and the more time I spend honestly just trying to make the content that I enjoy making and playing the games that I enjoy playing, the more I feel continually just boxed into that same position of, well, you're going to play this or we're not going to show your content. And I know that that's kind of like a sad thing to hear, but it is incredibly defeating feeling when I get requests to play all sorts of different games all the time, and I try to play them and no one sees them. And then when I go back to the content that I guess the algorithm deems, suitable for what my audience supposedly wants, I just end up getting more requests for other games that I guess just, it's one of those odd things. It's just like it keeps going around in a circle where people will request other games. I'll play those other games and then those videos don't get watched. So I go back to my standard games, to which people then request other games in the comments of those videos again. But then when I play the other games, then those videos on the other games again don't really get watched. So it's like this super odd cycle. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to, I just want to play the games that I enjoy and post the content that I enjoy making. And I'm not gonna lie, when the algorithm seems to box you into only being able to post, one very narrow type of content and one very narrow type of game, that feels so extremely constricting that at a certain point you start wondering, it's like, okay, well, how much SnowRunner can I actually do before it just becomes mind-numbing? But eventually, the problem you end up getting into is that if the algorithm thinks that you only make SnowRunner and, say, Offered Outlaws content, and it doesn't want to show the other content that you make, well, that can be extremely frustrating, because there's obviously a whole hell of a lot more to gaming in general and a whole hell of a lot more to the games that I enjoy than just SnowRunner and Offered Outlaws and games like that. And honestly, I don't necessarily know where I plan to take this channel in the future. Although what I do know is that I've always played the games that I've enjoyed playing here on this channel, and the only time that I have ever felt genuinely boxed in as far as what content I can post is kind of in the past couple of years, when the algorithm has shifted into like, oh, well, SnowRunner content, we're going to show that. We're going to put that in recommended. We're going to throw it out there. But other content that you might be passionate about and enjoy making, well, we're not really going to show that. And you're just going to deal. And I don't like that. I genuinely don't like that. And it is what it is. I'm sure, once again, I'm sure that there's going to be people in the comments that are just going to see this as, oh, you're just complaining, or, oh, you're just whining about something. Shut up and make something else. But honestly, if I was just whining about this, or if I was just the type of person that would whine about that in general, I would not have been in this space for over 10 years. So keep that in mind before you comment like, oh, you're just whining about this, shut up. But honestly, at the end of the day, I would love to hear y'all's feedback. And if there's anything else you would like to see, then let me know. I always have my eyes on the comments, and I always have my ears open for suggestions. And when I say suggestions, I mean genuine ones. I mean like, oh, I would love to see this, or I would love to see this. Not just, well, I think your channel's dead and you should just stop posting entirely. I stopped watching you forever ago. That is not constructive feedback. Trust me. That is not constructive feedback whatsoever. And I don't know, if you'd like to argue with me in the comments, sure, go right ahead. Be my guest. I can't promise I'll argue with you, but you can argue with a wall if you'd like. So anyway, that'll do it for this one, and I will see y'all in the next one. Talk to y'all later, and if you want to stay up to date with everything that I'm up to, you can check out my Instagram or any of my other social media channels in the description down below. But once again, that'll do it, and I'll see y'all later.